Well, hello there, and welcome to another edition of Warbird Wednesday. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum, and today we're going to be talking about another one of the aircraft that it's not involved in the Ukrainian conflict. We did the Su-25, which is involved, ground attack. This aircraft, though, there have been tons of memes about this airplane in the Ukrainian conflict with that Russian convoy hung up there, saying if they only had some Republic Fairchild A-10, the Thunderbolt 2, or affectionately known as the Warthog. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And today, Greg has coiffed me in my, what would you say, this a Warthog in training? Pretty close? All right, so I'm going to, again, very clever. And actually, with this one, there's a little inside baseball. Lieutenant Colonel Tim Mitchell of the 47th Fighter Squadron was here. Another great catch by the Kenny was here. We were actually going to try to do a stand-up with him. We just had an A-10 visit, but the reality of the situation was the airplane was such a movie star that we couldn't do it. So with the Lieutenant Colonel, we did send him back, which is customary, as we did with Dragon, because we were set up for an on-camera interview that didn't happen, unfortunately. We sent him back to Davis-Monthan with, what do you want to call that? The Warthog in training helmet, the best thing we could call it there. And Greg, we do have some pictures of that, actually, as it made back. I will say to the folks at the 47th, we expect to see ongoing pictures of that little man's development, that little guy's development over there. So we are talking about the A-10. Now the A-10 is the, we'll go up and throw a profile view up for you. The A-10 is the, and it's so old, can it be still premier? Probably the quintessential CAS, close air support aircraft, developed probably in the world. I would say this is one where we have the high ground on this particular airplane. We talked about the Su-25. It can take punishment. In fact, Greg can go out. There was some pictures up this week of an Su-25 that took a man-pad hit in one of the engines, came back. It got back to base. I dare say, looking at the damage, that airplane will not fly again. It went home, and it's going to be a spare parts bird. But the A-10, the Warthog, first flew in 1972. It was introduced in 1977. It is not a speed bird, Greg. Maximum speed on this aircraft is 435 miles an hour, which actually I thought it might be a little quicker than that, but it isn't. There were 716 of them built. It is built around the big gun in the front, that GAU 8A 30 millimeter cannon. That is what the airplane is particularly known for. What they call the BERT. I get it. BERT. It's big, heavy-hitting gun. But how did we get to this? We talked about in the segment last week with the Su-25 the reality that the United States after World War II realized in close air support. And you got to remember, early jets in 1950, again, I'm talking about American experience, did not have enough oomph, technical term, enough oomph to be able to carry a lot of weapon stores. They had terrible low-speed handling. They didn't, not only did not have enough power, the response rate on those early turbojets was not good, and they were just terrible close air support airplanes, so much so that in Korea, Corsairs, P-51s were all being called back to do close air support ground attack duty. And they did it well. We went into Vietnam. You had the Sky Raider, which we showed you in that last week's segment. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Probably was the premier CAS bird, close air support bird. Now, it's interesting that this aircraft came out of, the A-10 came out of a directive from the United States Air Force called the AX program in 1966, which was to come up with a close air support airplane. It was a fly-off against the YA-9, which we talked about, comparable bird, and then later against the A-7D, which actually made it into production. It's interesting that was the, they say there is no slack in ground attack. That's a Navy term, all my Navy friends out there. But actually, there ain't no slack in light attack. Somebody will correct me in the comments there. So I'll correct myself, Greg. I'm auto-correcting. It's amazing. It flew off against those, but they realized that they needed something that could get down in the dirt. Now, the realization was in Vietnam, and U.S. military doctrine, pretty much to this day, is find your enemy, fix your enemy, bring in massive firepower to bear, whether that's artillery or aircraft or whatever, with precision munitions. We have taken it a step further because now we can really, instead of carpet bombing an area, we can come in and hit the target with a precision munition. But that has not changed. In Vietnam, we realized that sending, and I talked about it last week, a $200 million jet over a $500 truck doesn't make a lot of sense. As we have gotten into these brush fire wars, although Iraq was not, the Gulf War was not a brush fire war, but a lot of these brush fire wars, that's turned out to be the case. But in Vietnam, we were learning, just these fast jets just didn't work. So again, slower airplane, tons of weapon stores. The A-10 has some unique features. Titanium bathtub or armor around the pilot. Now, unlike the Su-25, the pilot is up high in this airplane, has really, really good visibility. You've got this straight, big wing. It gives you excellent low-speed handling characteristics. Now, I always tell you at home, I'm always looking out for you. I'm going to give you a couple of barbette winners here. Greg always likes barbette winners. This one it has split ailerons. It has these huge oversized ailerons for the wings that give it tremendous turning ability. Deals with some of the yaw characteristics of the wing as well. I'm not going to get too down into the aerodynamics of the airplane. But also, this aileron is a split aileron. They open up, they split. Now, there is one other aircraft. Here's the barbette winner, Greg, that these share with, and it's an unlikely aircraft, Greg. You know what it is? It is the B-2, the Spirit. They share the split ailerons with, and one other one, Greg. The gear on this aircraft, the nose gear, is offset. What does that cause, Greg? It causes a tighter turning radius to the right than to the left. So the next time you're in that barbette, you can use that and win yourself a nice drink. Hopefully not any of the gruel that Greg is serving me. And today's gruel is particularly offensive, I might add. I saw this as he rolled it out before we did the segment. Now, the aircraft has gone through a ton of upgrades. We talked about the gun. We talked about firing the Maverick. It had Maverick missile. It can carry precision weapons. Can carry, with the upgrades it has now, can carry a JDAM. It is really a versatile bomb truck, pretty much. Can bring all kinds of weapons. It has gone through the Pave Penny pod upgrade. It was given inertial navigation. It has had the LASTE and GPS added to it. It has had the Hog Up program. SLEP, service life extension to 16,000 hours. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then the Tusk program, which gets the wings out to the aircraft out to 2040 operationally. Now think about how long that airplane will have been operating at that point. But the design features I talked about, big, nice, beautiful wing, big ailerons, splits the power plants apart. There are redundant systems throughout the airplane that can take all kinds of ground fire and punishment. And Greg can throw up some of the images. The A-10, we talked about it last week, been hit so many times by ground fire. Now, the aircraft, I don't want to say there is such thing as a perfect weapon, but this is about as close to a perfect delivery system as you could get. When we came up with this, when we came out of our experience in Vietnam, the Soviet Union was rising. The Soviets, taking all of their information from World War II, believed that they were going to fight the war in Europe with armor and fast maneuver. In other words, they were going to punch a hole through East Germany, through the Fulda Gap and those areas there in the Warsaw Pact countries, and the war would be over in Europe before the United States could act. The primary way that the United States, really the only option they had was they typically had at least division level strength of armor in Europe. In other words, we kept a couple of armored brigades and armored divisions in Europe. The reality was the Russians felt that they could overwhelm those with sheer numbers. The tanks, the T-72, the T-80, were the tanks around the time I kind of knew about this stuff, and I have to say my modern knowledge of this kind of ends with the Cold War, but I know a little bit about Russian Federation equipment. But the idea was that they would just punch through. Now, this aircraft, multiple targets, incredibly lethal against armor, was designed to completely hold that line. In other words, destroy as much Soviet armor and blunt the Soviet thrust as possible. And that was the design. Now, when we come back, and we're going to do a salute here, but when we come back on the other side of the salute, I'm going to tell you why this is a perfect weapon and where it cut its teeth. So we're going to put this down, and I'm going to move over to my salute today. And my salute is going to start. This is frightening. This is one I am really worried about. Judge Wapner root beer. I sent you to drink my root beer. Very clever. I looked at this when Greg brought it out. As I said, I never know what he's going to bring out of the chute of destiny as far as drinks. This one has me a little concerned. There's no date on this, Greg. So that's kind of scary. Now, the salute today is to all of the servicemen and women that have stood on the wall for the United States for the Cold War and continue to do that. As we talked about, Lieutenant Colonel Tim Mitchell from the 47th Fighter Squadron from Davis-Monthan brought an A-10 over, completely upgraded, by the way. Very cool airplane I'll talk about in a second. But those folks stand on the wall. He's actually taking a leave. He's an airline pilot. He's taking leave, and he is volunteering for his country. There's a lot of people doing that. And as we look at the Ukraine right now, we look at what's going on over there, the value of those people and the importance of those people defending our freedom becomes into complete focus. There are people out there that would gladly take our freedom, and we can see what's happening in Ukraine. Let's hope that that war is over soon. But to all those servicemen and women that are standing on the wall to protect freedom in the United States Armed Forces, I salute you. And with Greg today, I may be taking one for the team with Judge Wapner root beer. Now, it did fizz, and there is actually a little carbonation on it. Who knew? Greg is surprised by this. All right. That's not stale, so that's good. Oh yeah, look, Greg is like, oh damn. Okay, very funny, Greg. That's not horrible, Greg. Surprisingly enough, wherever Judge Wapner root beer is bottled, it wasn't bottled to the point that of when this airplane was built. So I got lucky. So where did the A-10 really come into its own? The A-10 came into its own in that in the Gulf War. And what did we see there? We saw the Iraqi Army Air Force, really a Soviet client state, all Soviet weaponry. This aircraft and the equipment, the M1 Abrams tank, all of the equipment that we put into the Gulf War along with our allies were designed, and you don't get a more perfect interlock of the weapons on either side. They were designed to fight each other. What came out of that was the A-10 along with the rest of the package in the Air Force that made it successful. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Totally destroyed the Iraqi army, and their Air Force was defeated by the high cover fighters and cruise missiles and all kinds of stuff, attack helicopters. But in a combined arms situation with this aircraft, with the rest of the aircraft and the munitions that were in the area, completely destroyed the Iraqi army. You couple that with the deployment of the F-117, and I think, and there are people that would agree with me, that the decline and the fall of the Soviet Union partially was caused by the fact that they came to the realization that they had spent trillions of dollars on all this stuff, and we cut one of their client states to pieces in relatively short period of time. Now, is the A-10 unsupportable? It can operate unsupported. The reality of the situation in Ukraine, and let's step up into that, is that this aircraft, if it were deployed without electronic jammers to jam the enemy air defense, without high cover to protect it, it only goes 435 miles an hour. It can carry sidewinders in a defensive role. This aircraft is incredibly vulnerable. The Russian Federation, step back now, Russian Federation with S-3 and 400 missiles that can cover that entire area, this aircraft, without jamming and everything else, would not stand a chance. And so while we see the A-10 memes and all that, great airplane, perfect to go after armor concentrations like that, but all of the other combined arms, electronic jamming, countermeasures, fighter escort, all the other stuff that goes into it would be the only way that this airplane would be successful. So saying that we would send the Ukrainians a squadron of A-10s would be great. Half of them would be gone within 5 or 6 days with the air defense over there. The Russian Air Force in that conflict has not performed well. They've lost, by estimates, anywhere from about 40 to 80 aircraft. Nobody really understands why that is. I have my own theories in that they don't fly a lot as it is. They did fly in Syria, but they're not flying against any opposition, and they aren't practicing combined arms. In other words, what I just talked about, we have ground forces, helicopters, fixed wing, electronic warfare. I just don't think that they've trained enough on an integrated basis to be able to field the kind of air force that you would see the United States or another adversary field. Therefore, you're seeing what's happening, which is just wholesale bombardment. They're going back to a very old form of warfare, which is just stand off and just pound the heck out of everybody. But this aircraft is more, and the design is designed to be surgical in nature. What's the future? They continue to have upgrades. The pilot in this thing, there's some glass displays in this. This does have the ability with a lightning pod and a sniper pod to look off bore and lock up targets. I don't see, especially because of the Ukrainian war, that the United States, even with drones, some people say, well, drones are good. They are good, but they don't carry the kind of payload and carry the kind of firepower that this aircraft has. I don't see drones supplanting these airplanes. I think drones might go into a high-risk environment, but they don't carry enough payload, and they're just not lethal enough for the battlefield. So will this airplane fly in the United States inventory till 2040? It is entirely possible that that will be the case. I think it will continue to be upgraded, but I can see that they'll carry anywhere from 200 to 300 in inventory going forward. I don't think the rewing of the airplane and the repairs and some of the things that were made on this life extension of the airplane have kind of played out for various reasons that I don't want to get into. But I think the A-10 is going to be around for quite some time. Now, Greg has outdone himself as far as merchandise today. We have, not only do we have the A-10 shirt, which reach out to Jason, click on that link. We have the A-10 model. I'm sure Scream actually has one of these and he flies around. What do you think with it at Davis Monthan? I think so. Good looking model from the Smithsonian. So reach out to Jason on that. As we said, the little warthogs are not for sale, although the 47th, I'll say it again, we want to know about the exploits of our little friend that we sent over there. We cannot do what we do. We're in the Miles hangar today. I'm standing in front of original P-47. We cannot do all of this without your donations. Get out to that link, click on the donation link, send us a few bucks. We could use it. If you come across us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, leave us a comment. My name is Fred Bell. I am the Vice Chairman of the Palm Springs Air Museum. Thanks very much. Have a great day.